Hello, I'm Oliver Thornton. I'm having tea with Wilma and talking about the Rocky Horror Show.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely. Never very much longer. I've got to keep control. I remember doing the time warp, drinking those moments when the blackness would hit me and the void would be calling.
I've been predominantly a theatre actor in the West End for the last 13 years, and have pretty much done the rounds. So done most of the big shows in the West End. Been lucky enough to do that, and I absolutely love theatre, and especially musical theatre, which is the majority of the body of work I've done. And I've been really lucky to have, been in a lot of the Andrew Lloyd Webbers and a lot of Macintosh productions and play some really iconic roles, and that was the draw of playing this role, really, was that it was, as your career moves on, you sort of start to want to look for challenging roles and roles that maybe when you were younger you would have shied away from. And so when I got offered this, I sort of thought, how could I resist, really? It was too good an opportunity to turn down. I think in some ways, lots of people kind of thought that because the last big show I did was Priscilla, it maybe seemed a similar move in terms of shows. But actually, I think they are very, very different. They're very different roles, that's for sure. Obviously, there is a theme of I wear women's lingerie, which you might see as a parallel, but apart from that, I think pretty much everything else is different. But the other way, I guess one might say they're similar, is that they've become iconic shows and they have grown this massive cult following. And Rocky obviously did it 40 years ago, and Priscilla just in the last 5 years. But yes, they are similar in that way. They both attract a sort of a cult audience. Yeah, I mean the thing is with you're right, with the roles, they are all about energy. I mean, Rocky Horror and Priscilla, both Frank and Furter and Felicia, it's all about energy. So the only way they're going to be successful is if you really attack them 100%. Like, there's no chance to really sit back on them. But in many ways, that's kind of the joy of it, really, because you kind of are forced to throw yourself into it feet first, and there's no room for kind of thinking, oh, I'm a bit tired tonight, and oh, tonight, I'd rather sit down and have a cup of tea with Wilma. It's kind of, you when you're in that zone, you just have to go for it, definitely. Well, I have been really lucky in that the big shows I wanted to do, my sort of dream roles, I have done. I always wanted to play Rusty in Starlight Express. That was my very first sort of show that I ever saw. Well, actually, it wasn't the first show I saw, but it was the first time I sort of went to theatre and thought, God, I'd love to do that. That's the role I want to do. And I was lucky enough for that to be my first job. But other than that, I'd always wanted to do Phantom and Les Mis, and they were sort of next, sort of for me in terms of my career. So really, there isn't anything that I can really think of that I'd desperately want to do. I'd really like to do some straight theatre, and I really like Tennessee Williams, so maybe I'd really like to do some Tennessee Williams. I've always said that. But in terms of musical theatre, it's kind of, I'm so lucky I've managed to, like you said, tick those boxes, which is, I mean, I'm so lucky to be able to say that. And what also it means is that it means now I'm always constantly surprised when new stuff comes up, or like when this one came up, because I never thought I'd play Frank. I just didn't think it was on the cards for me. So then when it was a real surprise. So, there's sort of nothing that I sort of feel like, oh God, if I don't play that, my life is going to be over. I'm lucky enough to have ticked those boxes. Well, the Rocky Horror Show is a musical written by Richard O'Brien in the 70s, and it's a very unusual piece in that the story doesn't sort of follow maybe the sort of standard musical theatre format. It starts off, you see a young couple, young 50s sweethearts, and their car breaks down and they look for help, and where they look for it is this sort of haunted castle over in the distance, and they're very scared, but they decide it's their only option, so they knock on the door and they are welcomed in, and the story then sort of takes over. It's sort of everything that happens to them once they get in the castle, and it's, you know, it has many different themes, and really I guess the story you might say is about Brad and Janet and what they learn once they get to the castle and so on, but there's all these other crazy characters that have their own stories. So yeah, it's I think predominantly it's about kind of being true to yourself and being sort of the overall message is kind of that you should sort of live your life the way you want to live it, and not be scared to be who you are. And I think that's why it has such a following, because people come and see it and they feel sort of uplifted by that message, and 40 years later, you know, people still come and see it and still feel the same way that they felt the first time they watched it. So I think that's why it's stood the test of time.
Just a jump to the left. With your hands on your hips.
You make it easy time. That is the bell because the beat has to be the same. Let's do the time warp again.
I have to say that the fans are amazingly creative and inventive, and there's not a moment they don't miss. If they can shout something, they will. I mean, there is a sort of traditional Rocky script that the real Rocky fans will know, and it's kind of like answering a question and an answer. So we say something on stage, and then they say something back to us. But then on the weekends, when it's really crazy, you start getting people that have never seen the show before, but they just sort of feel compelled to shout something out. So they're the nights, really, that you start to get kind of the unexpected shout-outs. But there's been nothing, I mean, there have been shout-outs that have made me laugh, but they're probably too blue for this interview. But it's amazing. I love it. I love it when the audience shout out. It's like this, it adds another whole dimension to the show. And when we have quiet shows, we all really miss it. All the cast, so quickly we've adapted and become sort of, we're all addicted to it now. And so we love it when they give us that back. It makes it even better. When I was younger, I saw the Rocky Horror Show, a lot younger, and my mum and dad don't actually know this, but I did dress up. I think we managed, God knows where we managed to get costumes from. I lived in rural Wales, and my friends and I managed to arrange some trip, I think, as I said, without my parents knowing. I don't think they knew, I can't really quite remember, but I dressed up as Frank then. I remember dressing up as Frank, or a version of. But nowadays, I'd probably be far too self-conscious. I think it was kind of the folly of youth. I sort of thought, I can pull off Frank. Whereas now, I think I'd leave it to professionals. I mean, I think what people don't understand is there are always so many mistakes. I think people think, I mean, hopefully they don't notice them, and that's why they think that. But in live theatre, things go wrong nightly. People forget lines, bits of set don't work, costume malfunctions. So, I mean, there are sort of too many of those moments. But, I mean, one that really sticks out was when I was in Priscilla and my dresser didn't set my costume, but it was an on-stage costume change. There was no option of going into the wings to get the costume. And I had to do the whole next scene in just a pair of a bra, and it wasn't even a pair of pants, it was a thong, and high heels. And so I was on sort of exposed for about 5 minutes in just panties and a bra, which was unexpected, and the audience loved it, and the cast loved it. And I grew to love it when I could laugh about it later. But no, I didn't mind, it was fine. I mean, those things happen, and you just get on with it. And it was very funny at the time, but people probably would be surprised that I am quite a reserved person. I keep playing these roles that are really out there, but I'm not necessarily an exhibitionist. I mean, I think sort of in the right circles, you know, if it was amongst friends, it'd be fine. But in a sort of public place, I wouldn't maybe be up for that. So I remember sort of thinking just before I went into the scene, thinking, oh my God, you know, 2,000 people are about to see me in a bra and a thong and nothing else, literally nothing else. But then, you know, the character takes over and you forget it and you go on and you do the best you can do. Yeah, well, I'm an accidental blogger, really. What happened was I'd set up my own website, and that was just really as a resource for fans or followers to go and see the work I've done. But I was really sort of conscious that I didn't want to do something just run-of-the-mill. So I'd spoken to a web designer that was an acquaintance of mine, and we came up with an idea of trying to do something different. So it was kind of, I think what it was that I have an interest in design and I like being creative. So I sort of thought, well, this is an opportunity to show people that. And when I was doing that, Priscilla approached me, at the time I was doing Priscilla Queen of the Desert, and they sort of said, why don't you sort of add on the idea of doing a blog? And we sort of thought, well, we could build that into the site. And actually, as it now runs as a sister site. But at the time, I think at the time they sort of thought it could just be like a small thing that would, you know, be for fans and so on. But when I went home, I sort of thought, and to have a think about it, I sort of thought, I don't really want to write about the show, because as much as I absolutely loved it, it's not really who I am. You know, I'm an actor and I go into work and I play the character, then I come home. So I kind of decided, well, what are the things I would like to write about? And I've always had a real interest in fashion and design and interiors. And absolutely love London and enjoy London and try and make the most of it. So I sort of thought, well, if I start a lifestyle blog, then it will reflect me. And actually what I soon discovered when we started it was that what I really like about it is that people kind of actually get a window into what I'm like as a person, which is what some of my fans have been quite vocal about wanting, in terms of I think, you know, people love coming to the theatre and they love seeing me play the role, and hopefully they have a wonderful night. But also, as an actor, it's sometimes nice to see what people are like away from all of that, away from the glitz and the glamour. And we've been really successful, and the blog's grown and grown and grown. It's called Design for Living. And it's now one of the sort of biggest lifestyle blogs in the UK, and we've got loads of hits, and it's been wonderful, and it's just grown and grown, and I have a small team of people that help me with it, and I still predominantly write it. It's my words, but I do need help with some of the technical stuff because I'm not as technically minded. But yeah, it's been a huge success, and it's going to continue to expand through 2013 and on. So it was purely by accident, but it's become an amazing thing in my life. So super. Yeah, it's great. So if you want to come and see Rocky Horror, please do, because it's a fantastic show and it's probably coming to a city really close to you. We are touring all over the UK, so there's no excuse. You can get tickets by going to ATG, their website, ATG Tickets. They're our producers, and you can find all the information about the show there. You can buy tickets. And if you want to find out a little bit more about me, you can either go to my own website, oliverthornton.com, or my blog, which is Design for Living. So you can find it by Google, I'm sure.
Let's do the time.